I was doing some shopping in the supermarket, caught this taxi back, and I got this taxi driver that I've been brought back with before. The time before, we got into a conversation in the car about reincarnation. What happened was that we went past the local cemetery, and I happened to mention that there was that particular grave, and I pointed it out as we went past, about the nature of the people that looked after it. It was a grave of a 57-year-old woman who died from cancer. She had 3 adult children and a very loving husband. They were a very loving family. Their loss must have been terrible. 57, so he's still young. However, they looked after that particular spot until the headstone came. You would find them, mowing the lawn around it, maybe not everywhere else, just around that part. They'd be lazing around in the sun, talking to each other, like paying a visit, if you see what I mean. Come to see if she's all right. When they put the headstone on, it was decorated with flowers, plastic ones. But that's because it was winter. But in the summer, you saw the same flowers, but planted this time. They even had a Christmas tree on the headstone at Christmas, and on Christmas Day they had a car battery at the back of the headstone and all the lights were on. It was actually quite unique, really. Why he was interested was because of what I said after that, because he then said to me, since you said that, you made a remark as we went past, didn't you, about the woman and life, which stuck in my mind, and I haven't been able to get it out of my mind since. I was hoping I'd get you again, take you home. And as I was going to ask you, explain it a bit more, will you? What I said to him was that it isn't necessarily the end, because there is such a thing as reincarnation. It was a general statement. I said, and what is strange is that for all we know, that woman was born in this town, lived, got married, had children in this town, brought their children up in this town, and died in this town. She was a woman of this town. How do we know that she hasn't got 4 or 5 other graves in the same graveyard, and this is the next one along, this life, because she's lived before in this town? That's quite common with transients. They call them transients. Can you imagine that? Laying there on the grass, unknowing to the fact that probably 4 or 5 other of those tombstones there belonged to her as well. Maybe even them. They were all locals. What does it mean? He said. Because I've always sat there and wondered, and just really, sometimes I watch these films about such things, and I wonder, I get excited about the fact that, could we really, how do you do that? Can it be done, and how do you do it? I said, well, I think I know. It's just the way you said it, you see. Because I really want to know. So we had this kind of a little conversation about it. In general, we came at the end of the little conversation, when I had to pay the fare, that we agreed in principle that such a process is possible. That's good, because if you don't have anything for something, then it'll never be, will it? One can believe in something and go all your life and find out you're wrong, but one can never even know something, go all your life and find out you've done better than those that believed into it, because I do not believe that reincarnation is something that you get from religion. Oh, can have a lot of flyback on that one. You don't get it from philosophy either. You don't get it from astronomy. You don't get it from being a king or a queen or a beggar or a thief or anything else. That's not what it is about. The whole principle of reincarnation is that one can survive the shock or the moment when the body dies. I very often in some of the writings I've done, refer to reincarnation in this way, that, you know, when you get older, or when it's time for your body to stop working, it's like a car that you've had all your life. It could be a 70-year-old car, and it goes out on the road for the last time. Somewhere along that road, that day, at a certain time, it conks out. That's it, breaks down, finished. And it doesn't matter how much you tinkle with the engine with spanners and screwdrivers and God knows whatever else you use, you'll never get that car going again. It's had its life. But that doesn't mean that because the car goes to the scrapyard to get recycled, that its passengers have to go as well, does it? That presupposes the idea that something in what we are, not who we are, I'll explain that in a minute, but what we actually are. Nature deals in what. Nature never deals in the who. You don't go up to a flower and say, "Okay, daffodils, who's the boss?" Not what's the boss, who's the boss? You never see a rose bush decide he's had enough of being a rose bush. He wants to be a postman, so he gets up and starts walking up the road. You know, everything in nature, mostly except the human, really lives according to its true nature of life. But we human can be so many different things, really. Postman one day, civil servant the next, bus driver the next, aircraft pilot the next, king or queen the next, dead the next. Just the fact that, was there a purpose for those lives? Because I can't see there not being a transient, a reincarnation. Transience is a continuous, repeated process. Not just one life, many. Now, there are cultures today in this world that are based upon that one percept of life. Like, as an example, the Tibetans. Buddhism is. Other religious processes are. And some of those cultures, those countries even, aren't religious with it. It is deemed that if you live a certain way, you will cause certain things to happen in yourself that can live on after the death of the physical body. Now, this is the first of maybe 2 or 3 videos I'm going to put up on YouTube about this. I'll give another example of what I mean by it's current in our age as well. You could have been burnt at the stake for saying things like this 300 years ago, you know. Ooh, careful. Don't go against the word of the Lord, you know. But what's religion got to do with it? I'll tell you what, nothing. It's another form of lifestyle that may just even promise the possibility of another life. And I don't mean in heaven. I'm shopping. I'm retired, 72 years old. I got retired through an industrial accident when I was 60. And so on and so forth. That's not important. What is important is I'm going towards this particular shop, and this guy comes up and hands me a leaflet and said, "Here, you must read this." And oh God, here we go, another one of them. And I took it off him, and something caught my eye on the front of it. And what it was there was this chappie laying down, and he looked dead. He was laying in a coffin. Well, as he looked dead, he was laying in a coffin. Of course he would be, right? And there was his body over him too. And it said, "This is the part of us that goes to heaven." And he said, "I tell you what," and I said, whoa, look at this. I said, "What display?" And he said, "Well, I had an accident. I was a motorbike man, right? He was in the 60s, motorbikes, yeah? He was a rocker, in other words. And I was a rocker too. And I was a mod. Anyway, that's Gemini's for you. So, he had a nasty crash and he died in the motorbike crash. A lot of them do, you know. coming bashing around the road at 18, 19 miles an hour, you're not exactly going to jump off and skip to a stop, are you? You know. He survived, but he was dead for a period of time. And he said he had never had such an experience in his life. Now everyone says, oh, I know all about that. Out-of-body experiences. Yes, of course, the academics would do that, wouldn't they? You know, you say, this is Jesus. Oh, yes, I know about him, born in 30, 0 BC and AD and died at 30. And oh, you're fine. This is rain. Oh, yes, I know all about rain. Yes, it comes from the clouds. It's the only part of the cloud that's subject to gravity. Oh, God help us. Yeah. Really simply. That was his astral body. That's what happens when you die. If you have an astral content, oh, this is dodgy talk, isn't it? No. Astral content, most people do. I can show you ways where they all do. Especially children. Astral travelling. What do you think Peter Pan, the story of Peter Pan is based on astral travelling? You know, it goes everywhere, this subject, I tell you. But that's a content that lives in the person. It's a natural, elemental content. And is not subject to life. But it gathers itself. It makes itself. It adds to itself. Unfortunately, from the pool of a culture. Whereas it should have added to itself from the harmony of nature within itself. But, you know, our culture, the pressures we live, and the fears and the doubts and the speeds and everything else that we have to suffer in our life alters the natural balance in us that we had between the ages of 0 and 5. We're inclined to anything natural, great world of discovery. Everything was a laugh, a smile, it was an adventure. And whoever said we should lose that? But that's not what happens, is it? When you're forced through an educational system that you don't want to do most of the time. I had a little conversation with that guy and explained to him, this is the astral form. He said, yes, I know. He said, but what else is there that we don't know about? He called himself a reformed Christian. He said, that's my Christian body. That's what lives on after death. Now, I could have got into an argument with him, but I wasn't going to do that. Why should I spoil his fun? But do you see the point here? There is a belief that something in us that we live with all of our life, whether we're part of it or not, that can go on after our body gives us away, comes to an end, conks out, etc., as I said before. Now, that being the case, he was very interested, this driver, because he said, how do you do it? How, what is necessary for something like that, and how can you come back, etc., etc. I said, listen, this is not something you can window shop. We live in a window shopping society. It's not something you can go and buy from a shop. This is something that could take you an entire lifetime, considering it's an entire lifetime that might live on after you're dead. All it means is you've just gone from one condition of life to a state of life, and the difference is you don't have a physical body. You're locked up in this whilst you live. And if you're lucky enough to live in certain parts of the world, you can do what you like with this body. It will suffer you or help you to live. Depends where you're based, isn't it? And when you say you, I'm talking about, yes, the core of you. I never use the word soul. I don't believe in the soul as such. I know there's something else far more important than that, and is the core of your balance with the great creation in which we live. Now, I'm not one of these star children, all right, so get out of that all crap. I'm talking about the reality of life, what's real. So what I'm going to say now is just this. In the matter of reincarnation, it is important to approach this subject from a non-religious, non-academic, non-idealistic or ideological standpoint or view. It's pointless, ladies and gentlemen, because it's nothing to do with that. This is about the true nature of life, the natural nature of life in us. The world understands, like as an example, that life as it is generally known is when it is lived in physical form. Sleeping, working, laughing, talking, learning, making life, building a house, riding an etc. To begin, it is important to take out of our understandings and learnings, ladies and gentlemen, all that doesn't relate to the process or event of reincarnation, so as to make it easy to see, especially if it goes against what's indoctrinated in you, to be able to come to terms with what is meant by reincarnation before we can talk about the actually what happens when we're born. You know that life begins on an in-breath and it always ends on an out-breath. It's a peculiarity. Now, is it possible to reincarnate? And my answer, ladies and gentlemen, is absolutely yes. It is. Now, I've been going on for about 18 or 20 minutes here. I tell you, that was what took place in the taxi ride. The next part, I'm going to explain some of the mechanics and dynamics of it, and some of the obvious features of it. I'm not going to bore it with 1,000 case histories. You can look on YouTube for that. Something that you yourself can go out and discover for yourself. Great believer in the do-it-yourself esoteric program. I really am. After all, as far as I'm concerned about reincarnation, to me, it's about me, isn't it? Am I going to live on after I'm dead? Well, I say yes, I am. And I know how and where as well. Oh, yes, you can. Don't believe them when they say it's impossible. It's not. Anyway, this is no doubt going to get a load of arguments. I'm going to look forward to see what's happening. So, in the next week, we'll see how many comments we get. And then we'll take it on from there. You don't have to subscribe to this channel. It's a new channel. If you do, thanks. Give it a thumbs up or something, whatever. Get some idea. And I'll make it known when the next one's due.